Marcus walked down the crowded sidewalk just as the sun began to tilt toward the horizon. Clouds drifted lazily across the sky, softening the bright light of late afternoon. He had finished his shift as a nurse's aide at the small clinic on Elm Street and carried his canvas bag over one shoulder. Inside were clean scrubs, a wallet, and a worn paperback novel he had hoped to read that evening. He planned to stop by the corner shop for a cold drink before heading home. His mind drifted over the day's work helping Mrs. Patel with her exercises. Checking Mr. Jenkins's bandages, sharing a quiet smile with Miss Ramirez as she sipped her tea. Every step felt easy in his quiet mood, until a sudden sound made him pause. A soft, grating noise came from the curbside. It sounded like metal against pavement, mixed with a tiny hiss. He glanced to his left and saw a young girl in a bright blue wheelchair. Her hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, and she wore a faded pink jacket despite the warm air. The dull sun cast a long shadow behind her as she leaned forward, her small hand straining against the large wheel. The wheel's tire was flat. He could see the thin rubber pressed against the concrete. Each push of the wheel made a sound like a soft whisper. The girl tried to turn the handle of a little wrench she held, but her fingers slipped again. The tool clattered against the curb. She dropped it and bent to pick it up, but her knee gave out, and she winced slightly before straightening. Again. Marcus's heart tightened at the sight. He recognized that look of frustration. That small, sharp frustration people feel when something simple turns impossible. He remembered a time not long ago when his own car had broken down on a rainy morning. He had felt helpless as he watched cars slip by, drivers too busy to notice him stranded. He had gritted his teeth in anger, pressing against the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. But he had also stood there and waited until someone kind stopped to help. He watched the girl now. She pulled at the wheelchair again. Screw on the axle glinted in the light. A drop of sweat formed above her eyebrow. She closed her eyes for a moment and exhaled a long breath, steadying herself. Her shoulders slumped and she turned her head to look down the street where a few people milled about, but none came close. Traffic thudded past on the road beside her. A city bus lumbered by, its brakes squealing as it slowed at the next stop. Car engines revved and distant horns sounded like distant birds calling to one another. The wind from the breeze of passing. Vehicles lifted loose strands of her hair and sent them dancing around her face. Marcus felt an urge rise in him. He thought about how he would feel if no one offered help. He had to wait and wait, watching the sky darken as evening came. He imagined her there alone, wheels unable to turn, hopes of getting home fading with the sun. With that thought, Marcus slowed his pace and shifted his bag to his other shoulder. He took a step closer, his shoes clicking on the pavement. He nodded to a couple walking toward him, then kept going. He tried to look casual, so as not to startle her, but his eyes remained fixed on the wheelchair. He noticed a small patch of grass near the curb, trampled by so many passers-by, it looked nearly bare. A crushed soda can lay near the curb's edge. He moved within a few feet, and the girl heard him. Her head turned, and she offered a nervous smile. Marcus smiled back warmly. He paused beside her and said, "Do you need a hand?" His voice was calm, gentle, without any hint of hurry. She blinked, lifting the wrench she held. "I'm trying," she said softly, "but I can't reach the bolt to tighten it." Her voice was small but full of determination. Marcus saw her fingers tremble around the metal tool. He nodded and knelt down beside her. The concrete felt cool under his knees. He offered to take the wrench. "Let me try," he said. She handed it over with a grateful look. Her hands hovered for a moment, unsure where to rest. Marcus took the wrench and turned it with slow, steady movements. He felt the bolt loosen, just enough to let the tire settle evenly against the frame. He shifted the wheel, tested its spin, then tightened the bolt until it was snug. He checked the other side and found it secure. All the while, he spoke quietly. "That place," he explained. "That happens when you hit a bump just wrong." He made a small joke about how even grown-ups sometimes fight with simple tools. He smiled at her and she laughed, the sound bright against the city noise. When he finished, he set the wrench. On the curb, he watched as she gently pushed the wheel forward with one hand. It rolled smoothly. She turned the chair and it swiveled easily. The difference was clear in her eyes. Relief glowed in her smile. "Thank you," she said, her voice stronger now. The energy in her words felt warmer than the golden light around them. Marcus straightened and brushed dust from his knees, stood up, offering his hand to help steady her. She placed her hand lightly on his palm. He could feel the texture of her glove-thin, gentle fabric against his skin. They paused for a moment. He looked at her face, noting the little freckles across her nose and the clear shine in her brown eyes. He guessed her age at perhaps 10 or 11. She looked both hopeful and shy. Yes, this ride was important, perhaps to meet a friend or go home for dinner. "I'm Marcus," he said. "What's your name?" "Emily," she replied. "I was on my way to art class." She glanced down at her bag hanging from the chair's handle, where colored pencils and paper peeked out. "I love to draw," she said, lifting her chin proudly. "That's wonderful," Marcus said. "I love art too. Not as good as you, I'm sure, but I enjoy it." He pointed at her bag. "Is that your sketchbook?" She nodded, her expression brightening. "Yes. I draw pictures of animals. Dogs, cats, sometimes birds. I was going to finish a drawing of my dog, Max." She looked around and sighed. "But the tire popped, and I thought I'd never get there." Marcus felt a warm surge inside. He thought how simple this act was for him. It took only seconds, but for her, it made all the difference. He remembered how he had once given a ride to an elderly neighbor whose car had stalled. She had called him a guardian angel, and though he had only done a small favor, it had changed her entire week. He said, "I'm glad I could help. Do you want me to walk with you to your class?" "It's this way, right?" He pointed down the sidewalk toward a small sign that read Community Art Studio. She hesitated. He saw the worry return to her eyes. Maybe she did not want to bother him further. But then she settled her gloved hands on the rims and said, "Yes, please. That would be nice." He smiled and fell in step beside her. She turned the wheels and he watched how the chair moved more smoothly than before. The sun cast a gentle glow over both of them as they crossed a quiet side street. The afternoon had cooled enough that the breeze felt pleasant. As they moved on, Marcus felt a sense of purpose he had not known all day. He thought that maybe help appears when someone truly needs it, in the most ordinary of moments. And though he had been tired after a long shift, this small act made him feel more alive than he had felt in a while. Emily glanced at him. "Do you come by here often?" she asked. He shook his head. "No, I usually go home another way, but I'll walk." "You anywhere you need to go," spoke gently, with a kindness she could sense. She smiled shyly. "I hope I'm not making you late." He shook his head again. "Not at all. I'm happy to help." They rode on, shoulder to shoulder, toward the art studio. Behind them, the day slipped slowly toward evening, as though it, too, wanted to linger on this moment of simple help and new friendship. Marcus thought that sometimes life surprises us in the smallest ways, and that one small choice can change the course of a day. A life, even to lives forever. When the delivery van thundered around the corner, its tires screeching against the pavement, Emily felt her heart jump into her throat. She gripped the handles of her wheelchair so tightly that her knuckles turned white. The metal frame rattled, as the van's rush of air tipped the chair to one side. In that moment, everything slowed down for Marcus too. He heard the distant roar of the engine shift to a sharp squeal, and he saw Emily's face flush with alarm. Without a second thought, Marcus dropped the straps of his canvas bag on the sidewalk. It landed with a soft thud beside an empty soda. Canny acted purely on instinct, a surge of protectiveness that drove him forward in long, sure strides. He cleared the distance between them in 2 steps and reached Emily just as the van passed. The air whooshed past both of them, stirring loose strands of her hair and sending her jacket flapping behind her like a small flag. "Whoa, are you okay?" Marcus asked, his voice firm yet calm. He leaned forward, placing both hands on the wheelchair's arms to steady it. His steady presence felt like a strong shield against the rushing noise and blare of horns. Emily's chest rose and fell rapidly as she tried to catch her breath. She lifted her trembling hand to her throat, feeling the flutter of her pulse under her skin. I think so," she said, her voice quivering. "Thank you." She looked up at him, her brown eyes wide and shining with relief. A thin line of sweat traced down her temple, and she tucked a loose curl behind her ear. She felt her cheeks burn, partly from fear and partly from the sudden closeness of a kind stranger. Marcus gave a gentle squeeze to the wheelchair's armrests to make sure it was secure. He lowered his voice so that only she could hear. "Let's make sure this chair won't wobble again." He reached for the same little wrench Emily had been trying to use. The tool lay on the pavement, dusty and forgotten in her panic. Picked it up carefully between thumb and forefinger, bringing it close to inspect the bolt that had loosened. Emily watched him, her breathing slowly calming. She felt a mix of gratitude and embarrassment. She hated needing help, but she couldn't deny how grateful she was. She had always been fiercely independent. Since the accident that put her in the wheelchair, she had worked hard to do everything herself, from getting dressed in the morning to navigating the winding sidewalks of her neighborhood. Yet today the world felt bigger, louder, and a tire that wouldn't hold air had brought her to her knees. Marcus knelt beside her, lowering himself gently onto the curb so that his eyes were nearly level with hers. The concrete was cool against his knees, and he stayed low, as if to say he did not want to tower over her or make her feel small. He turned the wrench, feeling the stiff bolt move.
Ow!
With each gentle click, he loosened the bolt just enough to realign the wheel properly on its axle. He spoke softly as he worked. "Sometimes these bolts loosen before you even know it," he said. "Might be from a bump in the road or if it wasn't tightened enough at the factory." He paused, wiping a bead of dust from the wheel with the back of his hand, then tightened the bolt until it felt secure. "There. Give it a try now." Emily reached out with a tentative hand to the wheel rim. She pushed forward gently. The wheel moved smoothly. No wobble, no strange noises. She pushed harder, and the chair glided down the sidewalk like a glider on calm water. Relief rushed through her in a warm wave. She turned the chair left, then right, testing it through gentle curves that felt fluid beneath her hands. "It works," she whispered, her voice full of wonder. "It really works." She looked at Marcus with a shy smile that lit up her entire face. "How can I ever thank you?" Marcus shook his head, standing up as he brushed dust from his knees. "No need to thank me," he said. "I'm just glad. You're safe." He paused and looked both ways down the street to check for oncoming traffic. "Do you feel steady enough to head on your way?" She nodded quickly. "Yes, I do." Odd. She lowered her hands to steady herself on the armrests. She took a deep breath and then sat up straighter. "I was so scared," she admitted. "I didn't know what to do if that van had hit my chair." He smiled in understanding and offered a hand to help her steady herself. He handled it. "As best you could," he said kindly. "It's not your fault the bolt slipped. Things happen. I'm just glad I was here to help." Emily took his hand and placed it on the armrest. She felt its warmth and sensed the sincerity behind his words. She thought of her parents, who worried about her every time she left the house alone. They had taught her to be brave, but also warned her that sometimes she needed help. She met Marcus's eyes and saw the kind of calm trust she rarely felt. "With strangers? What's your name?" she asked softly. "I'm Marcus," he replied. "I work at the clinic down the street." "Emily," she said, "I'm on my way to art class." She nodded toward a yellow sign further down the block that said Community Art Studio. "I was so excited to show my painting today, but then this happened." Marcus followed her gaze and saw the sign too. "Art class sounds wonderful," he said. "What do you like to paint?" "Animals," she said, her voice gaining confidence. "I especially like to paint birds and dogs. I have a dog named Max at home. I was drawing him today before the wheel went flat." He smiled. "It's great. I have a cat, Luna. She likes to sit in my lap when I read." He patted the pocket of his bag where his paperback novel rested. "Sometimes I draw her in the margins of my book," Emily giggled. The sound was like wind chimes in the summer air. She felt the tension in her shoulders ease. "I'd love to see your drawing sometime," she said. "Maybe you can show me after class." "That'd be nice," he said. He looked around and noticed that the sun had dipped lower, painting the sky in soft shades of gold and rose. "It's getting late," he said gently. walk with you to the studio, just to be safe." She hesitated, then nodded. "Okay," she agreed. "That would help me feel better." Marcus offered to push her chair, careful to respect her space. He placed both hands on the back handles and began to guide her down the sidewalk at a steady pace. Emily let go of her trembling grip on the wheel and rested her hands lightly on her lap. She felt the smooth hum of the wheel as it rolled over the cracks and bumps of the pavement. Now a comfortable rhythm that matched Marcus's calm footsteps. They passed a row of small shops, bakeries, bookstores, a florist whose display spilled pink tulips onto the sidewalk. Neighbors waved at Marcus, recognizing him from his work at the clinic. A child clutching a melting ice cream cone gave Emily a bright wave. She smiled and returned the gestures, something she would have been too shy to do before as they moved forward. Marcus pointed out small landmarks. "That bakery has the best lemon tarts in town," he said. "And the bookstore next door hosts reading hours on Saturdays," spoke in short, clear sentences, as though he wanted to share bits of his world with her. Emily listened, feeling a warmth grow inside her. In the past, she had often felt cut off from such simple joys, afraid. The wheelchair meant she had to stay home. But here she was, sharing stories with a new friend. Discovering the small wonders around her, they reached the corner where Emily's art studio awaited. The sign glowed softly in the fading light. Marcus slowed the chair to a stop. Emily turned and looked up at him, her eyes reflecting the rosy sky. "Thank you," she said again, her voice steady and sincere. "I don't know what I'd have done without you." Marcus smiled and shook his head. "You don't have to thank me," he said once more. "Just focus on your art." He leaned forward as though to offer a secret and draw something amazing for Max. Emily laughed a clear, joyful sound and promised she would. She gathered her bag from behind her chair and opened it to make room for her sketchbook. Marcus watched as she found the right pencil and set it on her lap. Before he turned to leave, he raised his hand in a small wave. Emily waved back, then wheeled inside the studio. Marcus paused on the sidewalk, feeling a gentle ache of something new in his heart. He realized that his small act of courage, dropping everything to help someone in need, had given him a gift. 2. The chance to connect with another person and to see the world through her bright, hopeful eyes. He picked up his canvas bag and continued down the street toward home, the evening light guiding his steps. And Emily, safe inside the art studio, settled into her chair and began to draw, her pencil flying across the page. Inspired by a simple act of kindness she would never forget. ChatGPT said, they walked together down Maple Avenue, their steps easy and their conversation light. Marcus kept one hand gently on the back of Emily's wheelchair, guiding it over the smooth pavement. Emily moved the wheels herself too, but she trusted him to share the effort. Sunlight filtered through the leafy branches overhead, making dancing patterns of light and shadow on the sidewalk. Warm air carried the faint scent of baking bread from a nearby bakery, and a soft breeze rustled the leaves. Emily felt a pleasant flutter in her chest. She had never felt so safe and so free at the same time. Usually, being in the wheelchair made her feel separated from the world. But walking beside Marcus made her feel part of it again. She glanced up at him. He wore a soft smile and walked with a steady, calm rhythm. His eyes were kind, as if he really cared about what she had to say. "I can't believe how smoothly that wheel works now," Emily said. Her voice sounded bright. "Feels like I'm flying." She gave a gentle push and then closed her eyes, imagining herself gliding like a bird. Marcus laughed softly. "You make it sound like magic," he said. "But it's just some simple tightening." He pointed to the bakery window where rows of golden loaves glowed. "Do you want to stop for a treat?" he asked. "My partner at the clinic makes the best honey buns." Emily looked at the pastries on display and felt her stomach rumble. "That would be great," she said. "I love honey buns." She loved sweets almost as much as she loved painting. They turned into the bakery. A friendly bell chimed as they entered. The air inside smelled of sugar and yeast. A woman behind the counter greeted them with a warm smile. She knew Marcus from his clinic visits. "Hello, Marcus," she said, scooping donuts into a box. "Back again so soon?" Marcus waved. "You know me too well," he replied. My friend here could use a pick-me-up after her adventure." He pointed to Emily. The baker raised her eyebrows and smiled. "Welcome, Emily. How about a honey bun and a chocolate twist?" She handed Emily a small paper bag wrapped in wax paper. Emily's eyes shone. "Yes, please," she said gratefully. She accepted the bag and opened it carefully. The pastry looked warm, and a wisp of steam curled from it. She took a small bite, and her face lit up. "It's perfect," she said. Marcus ordered a coffee and a blueberry muffin. They sat at a small table by the window. Emily unwrapped her honey bun and sipped from a small bottle of water she kept in her bag. Marcus passed the muffin over. She broke off a piece and offered it to him. He accepted it, and they shared the snack, talking about the simplest things. "Do you come here often?" she asked between bites. "Not as much as I'd like," Marcus said. "But when I'm not at the clinic, I try to take these quiet moments to enjoy life. Sometimes my work is very busy, and I forget to slow down." Emily nodded. "I know how that feels," she said. "I used to be active all the time. Before my accident, I ran cross-country and did all sorts of things. Then one day, my legs just stopped working the way they used to." She paused and took another bite. "It was scary, but I learned to adjust." She smiled bravely. "I discovered that people can change and still live a good life." Marcus listened closely. He reached across the table and touched her hand gently. "You're very brave," he said. "I admire how you face challenges." Emily looked down at her hand and then back up at Marcus. "Thanks," she said softly. "You helped me today more than you know. Saved me from feeling helpless." He shook his head. "You showed courage too," he said. "As soon as I saw you wobble in the chair, I felt I had to help. It felt right." They finished their treats in companionable silence. Outside, the sun had moved lower in the sky, painting the buildings in a warm glow. Birds perched on the wires above, chirping their evening songs. A few other customers came in, saying hello to Marcus and giving Emily friendly smiles. At that moment, Emily felt something new bloom inside her, a sense that people noticed her, cared about her, and welcomed her into their world. After they left the bakery, Marcus suggested they take a longer route home so Emily could feel comfortable testing her chair. She agreed eagerly. They rolled past a small park where children played on swings and families picnicked on blankets. Emily paused to watch a little boy feed pigeons. She turned to Marcus. "I miss this," she said, watching the world go by. Marcus nodded. "Sometimes we focus too much on where we're going and forget to enjoy where we are." Smiled. "That little boy reminded me of my niece. She loves birds." Told her about weekends he spent with family, teaching his niece how to draw on the grass with chalk. They reached a small green bench by the park entrance. Marcus unlocked a latch on the bench's side, and the seat folded out to form a ramp. He guided Emily up gently, and she sat, brushing her hair behind her ear. They watched the sunset together. The sky turned shades of orange, pink, and lavender. The air grew cooler, and Emily pulled her jacket tighter around her. "I never thought I'd enjoy an evening like this," she said. "I used to hide inside when it got dark." Marcus replied, "I think you deserve moments like this. You deserve to take your time, feel the breeze, and watch the colors of the sky." He looked at her with deep warmth in his eyes. Emily felt her chest filled with gratitude. She thought about how lonely she had felt after her accident. Friends had come by at first, but over time they drifted back to their own busy lives. She had worried that people would only help once and then forget about her. But Marcus had shown up not once, but twice first, to help with her wheel, then to walk with her, to share a coffee, to listen to her story. "Thank you for listening," she said quietly. "Most people don't ask me about my life. They just see the chair and look away." Marcus reached out and lightly tapped her shoulder. "I want to know who you are, not just see your chair." He paused, looking at the darkening sky. "Emily, I hope we can be friends." Her heart swelled. "I'd like that," she said. She smiled and stood, moving her chair back onto the sidewalk with ease. The ramp folded back into the bench with a click, and they continued. On their way back, they passed the clinic where Marcus worked. A few of his colleagues were leaving. For the day, they waved and called out greetings. One nurse came over to ask if everything was okay with the wheelchair. Emily introduced herself, and the nurse gave her a cheerful high fee. Emily felt as if she belonged. The faces around her were friendly, and voices spoke her name. She realized that her rescue had become more than fixing a flat tire. It had opened a door to community. She would never feel as alone again. As they neared Emily's home on Oak Street, Marcus turned his head. "Would you like me to come in and say hi to your parents?" he offered. Emily hesitated. She hadn't expected that. Her parents worried too much and might fuss over her even more. But she also wanted her parents to meet the man who had saved her. She felt proud of him and proud of herself for making a new friend. "My mom and dad would love to meet you," she said. "But don't worry, they won't keep you long." Marcus chuckled. "I don't mind a little visit." Chair up the short ramp to her front porch. Emily rang the bell, and her mother answered. She gasped when she saw Emily safe and smiling. Mrs. Turner balanced a load of laundry in her arms. "Emily!" she exclaimed. "You're home early." Her eyes then flicked to Marcus. "And who is this?" "This is Marcus," Emily said softly. "He helped me today when my wheelchair tire went flat." Her mother's eyes filled with tears. She set the laundry down. "Thank you," she said, her voice breaking. "I've been so worried." She reached out to hug Marcus, and Emily saw how strong and caring her mother was. Her father appeared at the door, wiping his hands on his jeans. He shook Marcus's hand firmly and thanked him too. Emily felt her heart fill with warmth. Looked at Marcus, who bowed his head respectfully. He turned to her parents and assured them he was happy to help. Then he turned back to Emily. "Well," he said softly, "I should let you two have dinner together. But I hope I see you tomorrow at art class." Emily smiled wider than she had in a long time. "I'll see you there," she said. "Thank you, Marcus, for everything." He flashed a bright grin. "Any time, Emily. Good night." He stepped off the porch and walked down the street under the glowing porch light. Emily's parents waved, and she watched until he turned the corner. Inside, she felt different. Her home felt warmer, more alive. Her parents chatted happily about Marcus's kindness. Emily knew she would think of him as she painted that night. She set up her easel by the window and let the sunset colors spill onto her canvas. She painted a picture of a brave man solid as a tree and a small girl in a bright blue wheelchair, riding smoothly along a golden road. In that painting, she captured the moment when two lives touched and changed each other forever. News of what happened between Marcus and Emily spread through town like a warm breeze. A few days after their first meeting, a local reporter from the Maple Gazette stopped by the clinic where Marcus worked. She wanted to interview him about the brave act everyone was talking about. When Marcus arrived at work that morning, he found his colleague, Nurse Reyes, waving a copy of the paper with a big headline that read, "Kind Stranger Saves Young Artist's Day." He smiled sheepishly, but inside he felt proud and a little shy. That afternoon, a small crowd gathered outside the clinic's front doors. People brought handmade cards, fresh flowers, and little gifts for Emily. They wanted to show their gratitude. To both Marcus and the cheerful girl in the blue wheelchair, Emily beamed as neighbors handed her drawings and colorful notes. Some children from the local school made a large banner that said, "Thank you, Marcus and Emily." It hung between two trees by the sidewalk. Emily placed her hand gently on the banner, her eyes shining with happiness. Marcus felt his chest warm as he watched how the town embraced her at the art studio. The owner asked Emily to display her drawings on the main wall for everyone to see. She set up a little table by the window and pinned her new portraits of Marcus, that kind nurse's aide who fixed her tire and saved her from fear. She drew him, carrying his bag and kneeling down to help, his face calm and gentle. People who came into the studio paused to read the story on a small sign Emily wrote by herself. "How I Met My Hero." She used simple words and her handwriting curved with childlike beauty. As visitors admired her work, Emily felt a sense of pride she had never known before. One morning, the mayor's office called Marcus with a special invitation. They asked him and Emily to speak at the town hall meeting about their experience. At first, Marcus hesitated. He did not see himself as a hero. He worried about speaking in front of so many people. But Emily encouraged him. She told him how his words could inspire others to help when they saw someone in need. Marcus agreed. He practiced his speech at home, pacing in his living room while Emily listened. She gave him thumbs up and gentle smiles that made him feel braver each time. Night of the town hall, the big room buzzed with chatter. Chairs filled up with families, neighbors, and local leaders. Its bright lights pointed at the stage. Emily sat beside Marcus in her wheelchair, holding a small notebook filled with her drawings. When it was their turn, the audience grew quiet. Marcus stepped to the microphone, his heart pounding. He cleared his throat, then spoke in a calm, steady voice. He told them how he had walked by a girl struggling with a flat tire, how he stopped because he could not ignore someone in trouble. He shared how small acts of help could matter more than we know. When Marcus finished, the room erupted in soft applause. Then Emily rolled forward. She spoke with clear, brave words about how Marcus's help gave her more than a working wheel. It gave her confidence. It made her feel part of her community again. She held up her portrait of him, and people leaned forward to see its bright colors and the caring expression on his face. Some in the crowd wiped their eyes. After they spoke, neighbors formed a line to thank them both. Marcus realized that day that his single act of kindness had become a gift to many. Inspired by the attention, Marcus and Emily decided to do something more. They wanted to help others who faced small but frustrating problems in public flat tires, missing tools, wobbly equipment. They began to plan a free workshop in the community center hall. Marcus gathered simple tools: wrenches, screwdrivers, glue for small tiers, a patch kit for wheelchair tires. Emily offered to decorate the walls with her drawings portraits of every volunteer who joined them. Soon, friends from the clinic volunteered to teach basic first aid. A local bike shop agreed to lend extra tire pumps and share repair tips. On the morning of the first workshop, the community center buzzed with activity. Long tables held tools neatly laid out. Bright posters designed by Emily explained step-by-step how to fix flat tires on any mobility device. Marcus welcomed each person with a warm handshake, while Emily guided visitors to the art station where they could draw pictures. A grandfather practiced tightening a bolt under Marcus's gentle instruction. A mother watched her son learn how to use a patch kit. A neighbor who had struggled to push her walker tried out the new tires she had just learned how to fix. Emily sat at her art table, smiling as she pinned new portraits on the wall. Each drawing showed someone helping another person. She painted hands holding tools, wheels turning smoothly, and faces lit with relief. Children came by to watch and then tried their hand at drawing. One little girl drew a picture of Marcus and wrote, "The kind man who helps." Emily praised each new artist and labeled their work with care. The building filled with soft chatter, laughter, and the occasional click of a wrench. By midday, the workshop felt like a small festival of kindness. Volunteers served lemonade, and a local bakery donated fresh cookies. People swapped stories of times they had needed help and times they had offered it. Marcus listened and learned how helping others also helped himself. He felt more connected to his town and to Emily than ever. Emily soaked in every moment, her face glowing as she talked with new friends and saw how her simple art brought people together. After the workshop, the newspaper ran another story, this one titled "Neighbors. Fix the World, One Bolt at a Time." It featured photos of Marcus showing a wheelchair how to roll smoothly and Emily adding the final touch to a colorful portrait. The story reminded everyone that true change starts with a single act of bravery and grows through community effort. Marcus kept a copy of the paper on his desk at the clinic. Every time he saw it, he remembered how helping one person had led to so much more. Weeks later, the town began to notice other small acts of courage. A teen helped an elderly man across the street. A driver stopped to assist a woman with a stroller. People started carrying basic tools in their cars just in case. The mood in the town shifted toward kindness. Emily's art lined the halls of the school, inspiring students to look around and see who might need help next. Marcus felt proud that his simple choice to stop for Emily had set off a gentle ripple through his entire community. One evening, Marcus sat at his kitchen table and opened an envelope. Inside was an invitation, a small reception at the art studio to honor Emily's achievement. The studio owner wrote that Emily's work had raised awareness and taught everyone the value of caring for one another. Marcus felt his heart swell with pride. He called Emily, who squealed with delight when she heard the news. They agreed to celebrate with the first piece Emily ever painted after they met. A portrait of Marcus shining with gratitude. On the night of the reception, the studio was filled with friends, family, and neighbors. Soft lights highlighted Emily's drawing of the golden sunset and the blue wheelchair that glided across the page. Marcus stood by her side as people praised her talent and her big heart. He realized once more how much their lives had changed. He spoke quietly to Emily. "You've changed my life in ways I never expected." She smiled back and took his hand. In that moment, both of them knew that their chance meeting had sparked something more than friendship. It had awakened a spirit of kindness in a small town. It had shown that when someone reaches out to help, they do not just fix a tire or steady a chair. They repair hearts, brighten days, and build communities where everyone feels seen and valued. And as Marcus looked on at Emily's shining face, he felt certain that one small act of courage can indeed change lives forever and many more besides. The morning sunlight streamed through the tall windows of the community center. Emily arrived first in her bright blue wheelchair, her sketchbook tucked safely in her bag. She had drawn a picture of the old brick building the night before, its tall columns glowing in the morning light. Marcus pulled up behind her, carrying a large box of tools. He smiled at Emily's drawing. She beamed right back. Volunteers filtered in, carrying tables, chairs, and more jars of paint for the art. Corner, young people, parents, and even a few policemen offered to help set up. Marcus organized the tools into neat rows: wrenches, screwdrivers, patch kits, tire pumps, spare bolts.
Ow.
Emily taped up her colorful posters that showed step by step how to fix flat wheelchair tires and how to adjust loose bolts on walkers and bicycles. The bright drawings caught the eye of everyone who walked past. Soon, the doors opened to the public. People came with all kinds of worries. An elderly woman pushed her shopping cart in, her walker wheel loose and rattling. A father led his young son, who had lost a spoke in his bicycle wheel. A teenager arrived on roller skates whose wheel bearings had worn down. Emily greeted each visitor with a warm hello and pointed them to a repair station. Marcus knelt beside them and taught them how to tighten bolts and use the patch kits. While repairs happened, Emily sat at her art table. She invited anyone waiting to try drawing. They drew small pictures of the people who had helped them. Grandmother sketched Marcus, helping her walker. A boy drew Emily, smiling beside his repaired bicycle. Parents snapped photos and posted them online with the hashtag #FixItTogether. Laughter and chatter filled the room, punctuated by the click of tools and the scratch of pencils on paper. Midday came, and volunteers served lemonade and sandwiches donated by the local cafe. People sat on folding chairs to rest. They shared stories of the times they had felt stuck and how a simple repair had made their day easier. A man in a suit told Marcus that he was so moved by the workshop that he planned to bring the idea to his own town. A nurse offered to teach a class on basic first aid at the next event. By afternoon, more than 50 people had learned a new skill. Children proudly wheeled their bikes outside to test their fixed tires. Elderly neighbors rolled down the ramp with confidence. Emily pinned each new portrait on the wall of helpers, a long banner that covered one side of the hall. Every drawing showed hands reaching out, wheels spinning smoothly, and faces lit with gratitude. As the sun dipped lower, Marcus and Emily stood before the crowd for a short speech. Marcus's voice was steady. He thanked everyone for coming and for offering kindness to one another. Emily spoke next, her words clear and brave as she talked about how this workshop had given her faith that people still cared. They invited everyone to join them again next month. The crowd cheered and clapped, and some volunteers stayed behind to help clean up. After the workshop, Marcus and Emily paused in the empty hall. The broken chairs were stacked, the tools packed away, and the wall of helpers rolled up for safekeeping. They looked at each other and smiled. Marcus said softly, "We did this together." Emily nodded. Together, she echoed. They knew their plan had worked. Not only had they fixed many broken wheels, but they had also woven stronger bonds. Through simple acts of kindness, weeks passed, and the workshop became a monthly event. Other towns heard about the success and asked Marcus and Emily to visit. They traveled to a neighboring village and taught their methods to new volunteers. Emily's art grew bolder, filling larger walls with scenes of people helping one another. Each portrait told a story of courage, hope, and community. One evening, at the end of a long day, Marcus and Emily sat on the steps of the community center. The world around them glowed in the soft light of dusk. Emily opened her sketchbook and sketched their favorite memory, the day they first met at that busy intersection. It showed Marcus kneeling beside her wheelchair, both faces calm and kind. She wrote beneath it, "When one person stops to help, 2 lives change forever." Marcus watched her draw and felt a deep wave of gratitude. He thought about how a small choice to stop and offer help had grown into so much more. He realized that every time someone fixed a flat tire or tightened a loose bolt, they were repairing something deeper in themselves and in their community. And in that gentle moment, as the evening breeze whispered through the trees, Marcus knew their story would continue to spread one act of kindness at a time.